Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Season 2 for Devil's Advocate Trades Edition. With me today is Seth Goldstein, who is a podcast coach, and I'm super stoked to have Seth on. I gave you guys a run through the last time that he was coming on and what he does, and that he had given me the little Easter egg to put two episodes, like to launch or drop two episodes out every once in a while. And I did that last week. Was my I did a two drop, and I got a really good response for it. So thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. So Seth, just so you know, last time I talked to you, I was at a rank of about 204 Canada, which was great because I am Canadian and we want that. And I know you're in the States, but now in like less than 30 days, I'm at 145 rank on Apple.
Way to go.
Right?
Awesome, Lisa. That's awesome.
And then it was funny because I was talking to my podcast team and I was like, because we have there's a whole bunch of us in the team and we all talk to each other and we all encourage each other. And it's a really great community that I'm a part of for my podcast team. And we were talking and I was like, we should get all the other podcasters to do a segment where we talk about our ranks. And the guys are like, we're not going to do that. And I'm like,
no,
well, why? It's really encouraging. It's really encouraging. He's like, well, you're kind of the only one in the top 200, Lise, so we're not doing that. And I was like, oh.
That's fine.
And because I mean, I'm just I don't know if it's maybe I'm like a little delulu or what, but I just think everybody's doing so well.
Everyone, you don't have to. The ranks are not everything. That's the thing. And as long as people are listening to your show is what matters. Yeah. And you're enjoying yourself and all that good jazz. So
I agree. Sorry, I had to turn up my volume. I heard the beep.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, so I mean, what I'm fascinated in is when you talk about being a podcast coach, what does all of that include, and why did you become a podcast coach? Because I know you have quite a decent clientele.
Yeah, so I've been podcasting since 2010, and I was like, okay. So then I goes, we originally, you and I met on Alignable, which is it's a small business network and stuff like that. Yep. And on there, everyone and their mother is a digital marketer. So setting yourself apart was not really something that I could do. But I mean, I could do good work and all that stuff. But So I was like, well, I've been coaching people on the side on podcasting this whole time. Why don't I make that my vertical, at least on Alignable? And the outpouring of support and people wanting to talk to me and hire me has been exponentially greater than just being a generic digital marketer. Okay. And so I was like, okay. I think I hit a seam of gold in the ground here. Let's go after this. So it's been a ride so far. And what pretty much what a podcast coach does is I do everything from helping you kind of formulate your idea for your podcast to kind of set up a strategy on schedules. So you don't have to just throw them out willy-nilly. You have a plan in place. You know what's expected. People know what to expect, all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of set it up so that you're ready to succeed, not just fizzle out after 3 to 10 episodes.
Okay. The reason why I wanted you on is more of a resource. I'm going to tell you that right now. Because in trades, shit happens. And
all the time.
Right? And I mean, like, I watch some videos sometimes just like when I'm like, just like, you know, like I call it doom scrolling because 1 minute it's like, you think you're going to do it for 10 minutes and you look up and it's like 2 hours later.
And you're like, what the heck? Exactly.
Right. So, so when I doom scroll, I'm sitting there and I look at some of these reels that go off about construction and how like things can change in like a second.
You know, you're also outside a lot of times and like the weather changes and you're like, oh, well, we can't be on the roof right now because we'll fall off the roof.
Well, not just that, but like I remember when, you know, I worked for a landscape company and I was the COO of a landscape company. And I remember when I used to tell all the staff when you're out, because they had metal in their hands, I was like, you can cut through the rain unless there's thunderclaps. Then you have to get out. You have to get under something.
You got to get the heck out of it.
Leave your tools there. Leave them there. Do not carry them with you. But a lot of them, like the owner was like, take your tools, they're expensive. And I was like, oh, shut up. I'm like, and I would say as a safety, leave your tools right where you had them and go.
You go back and get them. No one wants them.
Yeah.
They're used. It's true. I mean, literally, someone leaves their tool behind. I put it aside. Like we
Mhm.
had our HVAC guy over. He left his screwdriver. I emailed them and said, "Your guy left the screwdriver. Did I keep it? Don't worry about it. It is what it is." I'm like, "Oh, I got a good screwdriver out of the deal." But
Yeah.
ultimately, like homeowners, I'm like, if he wants to come back and get it, it's here for him. Or next time someone comes, I'm like, "Oh, your guy left the screwdriver. Bring this back to him," kind of thing.
I
No one's gonna
agree, but
steal your stuff.
well, you think so, but you know what? Like with the way the economy has been moving, people will take just about anything if it's left. It's like no, you know what I mean? It's like if you find $100 on the ground, do you like turn
Well,
it
that's
in?
different. Well, that's different because you can't really identify who it belongs to.
True, but regardless,
Whose $100 is this? Mine,
mine.
mine. Exactly,
Oh, I just dropped that. Thank you.
exactly.
But yeah, no, but so that was kind of the thing is that I wanted because I know that there's some tradespeople that are. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. Tradespeople are super funny. Most of
Oh, they're
them,
hilarious.
right?
They will
They got
curse you out because they love you.
it's true, and I mean the newer generations that are coming in are struggling with that
Yeah.
dynamic. But that's, I mean, I always get told
The
they're
old
like, "Oh my
crusty
God, you're so
guys
funny."
are like,
Yeah.
the old crusty guys are interesting.
So I mean, it's super funny. So I think to myself, if something happened, you know, why not start a podcast, talk about your journey? You've got lots of friends in trades. You could build a
Mhm.
really great podcast. And so when I got pushed into podcasting, because I was not podcasting, it took me a year to wrap my head around the idea of podcasting.
Oh, it's a lot to wrap your mind. It's a lot to kind of. Sometimes you just gotta get started. Sometimes you just gotta throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
Well, and so I knew I wanted to stay in the element of trades because for me, it was all about making ripples and breaking down borders because I'm female, right?
Yeah.
So, because everybody's like, oh, females can't do this, females can't do that. But I'm like,
And you're
I
like,
want to,
watch me.
well, it's not even that. It's more of like it's not as bad as you guys think it is.
No.
There's problems and there's some really shitty, you know, people out there and ignorance, but a lot of the men actually aren't bothered by women. They don't really care. They're
Honestly,
like,
women are smarter, in my opinion.
well,
They think before
well,
they
thank you.
hammer that nail. Well, they think before they hammer that nail. They don't just go boom, 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 boom. Ah, I stapled my hand to the roof. Like
And there's some
they're
girls.
more. What's that?
There's some girls like that.
Yeah, but I mean, mostly that they're more females are more methodical than guys.
It's
In my
true.
opinion.
It's
Yeah.
true. And you know, and so I mean, like I've told men, like I've met finishers, female finishers, carpenters that far surpass a male carpenter that's been doing it for 20 years. And you get someone that's in there and she's got her journeyman and she's working her ass off and she just has a different eye. Not all of them are like that, but I know that I've seen female finishers run circle around seasoned males. And I'm like,
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
right? And same with female operators,
Yeah.
right? I've seen like large equipment female operators that can just, you know, run circles around the counter.
Drive around circles.
Yeah.
Around the men. Yeah.
So for me, I was kind of like, part of it is like what you said, right? It's like I'll show you, like hold my beer kind of thing.
Oh, my beer, exactly. Yeah.
Right. But the other part of me was like, I don't know. I think it needs to be fun. I've watched some of the podcasts by other trades, like other trade guys.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're not as funny and like they're not bubbly. They're kind of like it's almost kind of like the
This
tone
is
is
my podcast. Let's talk about how to finish a piece of wood. Blah, blah, blah. Exactly. You gotta kind of get into it. Realize there's gonna be gaffes. Realize that you're not public radio, and you're not trying to, be buttoned up. That this is a chit chat.
Yeah.
It's people are coming here to listen to chat, not to listen to Terry Gross on NPR kind of thing.
Well, right. And so then like I'll throw out controversial topics when I'm talking on my own. I get really passionate with it. And I'll, you know, because I mean like you're in the States and I'm in Canada and I'm like, there's a part of me that feels bad for a lot of people in the States. I think y'all are great, you know? And then like
You should feel bad for us right now. You should
I
feel
do.
very bad for us right now.
I'm watching, like
I feel bad for you too. I mean, honestly, going out, our whole excuse was, oh, we'll go up north, and now it's like up north is like, hold my beer, we'll be just as screwed up as you. And well, I'm like, Canada, please don't model yourself after us.
No.
Please don't. But Trudeau stepped down,
Yeah.
shut down the government, and I'm like, oh, great. Well, that's not a good place to go now. Now where?
Well, and so this is my thought, and I had talked to some people because everybody was like, "Oh my God, Justin Trudeau shut down the government." I said, "I think it was a strategic move."
Oh, it totally was.
And they're like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, Timu Trump can't get in now." So
yeah,
and it's like
Trump couldn't get in there in the first place. Let's
no,
be
but
honest.
we call Pierre Poilievre Timu Trump. We call.
That's funny.
So, and so then that's where I personally believe that there's a lot more that we don't know about, right? There's always stuff that goes on.
Always. There's more to the. Oh, I mean, maybe not Trump, but we'll stop there. But yeah,
Right.
I think he's pretty
Well,
surfacey.
well, he's like the Gen Zers, and he wants to document all of his stuff online, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Did you not grow up like where you had a diary and you didn't want anybody to read your intrusive thoughts? You're letting your intrusive thoughts win. That's not how this.
You're such a Canadian. You're such a Canadian. I love it.
But and then so now I'm watching all of these like on TikTok and on like different social media platforms, and it's like the countries are gathering together, the Commonwealth. So we've got like Australia and the UK and even like South Africa, and people from France are coming in. They're like, listen, like he wants to go to war with Canada. He better sit down,
He better sit down.
So,
he better sit down, eh?
Right? Eh?
Hey. Stop being a hoser.
Yeah, right? Fucking A. But then, but it's interesting that for me, I was more worried about the Canadian politics because I already knew what Trump was capable of. We already watched that shit show go down, and now it's
this is part 2. It's like,
right?
He's like, I'm back.
Sequel. Here we go. Is the sequel better than the first part? Everyone always likes the first part better. So
we didn't like the first part either, but the first part we didn't know what to expect. So.
True. I mean, like, I really liked Back to the Future 1, but I really loved Back to the Future 2.
Back to the Future could do no wrong, honestly.
But, and so for me, I'm just kind of sitting here and I'm like watching the shit show go down. And I'm like, I'm so grateful that Justin Trudeau shut down politics. Like, he shut down the government. It was basically like, we're taking a break for 90 days because we've got a shit show going down and you guys need to see who the person you might elect in is. And it's very strategic. And I'm like,
it's totally strategic. Yeah, smart. It was totally like, take your time, figure out who's going to replace me. Yeah. That kind of thing. Focus on that, not governing right away. That kind of thing.
Well, exactly, because everybody was in an uproar to get rid of Justin. And I was talking to a bunch of friends of mine, and I said, here's the thing, guys. I said, Justin came in strong, but his time here is he's overstayed his welcome.
You guys don't get rid of people fast enough.
Well, and it's not even that we don't get rid of people fast enough. It's the devil you know versus the devil you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that's what happens a lot of the time. It's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And people in Canada, we really want to hold out hope that you're going to be a better person. So we give you a chance.
You're hopeful.
Yeah, we give you a chance.
You're not cynical.
100%. So
not yet, or until later. Yeah.
We still need to. A lot of us still need to learn that people show you who they are the first time.
Yeah.
We need to get behind that one. Us poor Canadians.
Exactly.
We're like, no, he showed us who he was the first time, guys. And they're like, yeah, but do you really want to learn this guy? And it's like, yeah, you're right. So, so that's kind of what happens.
Exactly.
Well, and I mean, it's scary to me because I think to myself, if we hadn't voted, like if I didn't vote Liberal, I voted NDP the last time. So if we didn't vote, if Justin didn't get back into office and it wasn't NDP because NDP wasn't strong enough to get in at that moment, they're not far behind. But if Conservatives had gotten in, we'd be up shit creek without a paddle right now.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
crease to go up. So there you go.
Well, that's it, right? It's like now instead of fighting for the right reasons with Canada and trying to stay aligned with the other countries, because we are, no, you're only as good as your word. So we have, we have a document that says, if our neighboring company or if our neighboring countries or if anyone in this document is in trouble, we're going to come help you. We're here. We're an ally. So we're not just going to turn our back and be like, well, we're going to do what we want. So
yeah, exactly.
So that's what's happening.
That the hard way, exactly.
Well, it's so funny, and one of the things I love about being a Canadian, and I feel like I said, I feel bad for some of the Americans because every time I go to a new country, like I'll go into like Mexico or I'll meet people from Germany, like that are coming straight out from like off the plane from Germany or wherever. And they're like, oh, you're Canadian. We love you. And I'm like, oh, because a lot of times
everyone loves Canadians. And they don't realize that there still are shitty Canadians.
I'm like, yes, there is shitty Canadians.
They do exist.
They do. Everyone will say, yeah, they all went to Alberta. And I'm like, oh, I'm in Alberta.
You're in Calgary, right?
No, I'm in Airdrie.
I don't know where the hell that is.
Well, it's 20 minutes from Calgary.
Oh, you're in the burbs. You're in the burbs. The burbs, as we call it down here.
Airdrie is a city, but we're not as big as Calgary.
A suburb of Calgary, exactly. There you go.
Yeah, well, it's like there's like a whole bunch of suburbs, and then you drive the highway for like maybe 10 minutes, and then you're in Airdrie.
There you go.
Yeah. So kind of the burbs. It's like the burbs are pushing closer to us.
They're getting your own burbs, exactly. So.
I love that. But yeah, no, you're not wrong. There's shitty Canadians too. Because I mean, like, I sit there, like, I'm watching TikTok and whatever, and there's this girl, and she's in Mexico, and she's an American, and she's like, I'm getting the shittiest service. There's a smell that we can't figure out. This is like fucking horrible. And I'm like, is there a lot of Canadians at your resort that could cooperate with what your experience is? Because then could it be because the Mexicans are pissed off at what's happening right now? And they know you're American?
Exactly.
Like, is this pushback? Because that's where that's where my heart aches for people. People still want to go to Mexico that have nothing against Mexicans, that have ties to the Mexican communities in their own ways, and they want to enjoy and bring money down to Mexico. And there's, and then now Mexico is like, fine, take all your fucking Americans back. And the Americans that are sitting in Mexico, that are living there illegally but have homes, are like, what did we do? And it's like, well, you're not contributing to our economy, like in the way that you expect us to contribute to your economy when we go down there. And now your person, now your head of state is like, everyone gets out. And
exactly.
We do have people.
It's a shit show all around. The whole world's a shit show.
Well, we do have people in Canada that talk the same as Trump. Like, I've heard them.
Oh, I'm sure. You got a whole bunch.
People are people, right? I've heard people be like, oh, like I say there's only two genders, right? And people are like, Lisa, there's more than two genders. And I'm like, the 2% that are born with possibly both or some alteration of it. It's such a small percentage. When I say two genders, I'm like, I don't care which one you choose. Go with it and be happy. Right? Yeah. So that's kind of like my thing, is where I'm like, I don't care. When I say there's two genders, it's because I grew up knowing female and male. Whichever one you choose to identify with has nothing to do with me.
All the more power to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me. It should not bother people.
Right. It shouldn't bother people.
Mind your own shit. Mind your own shit. You got your own shit in your own life. Deal with your own shit.
Well, that's it, right? So it's like, I listen to all this garbage that goes on, and I'm like, the problem is that we had a whole bunch of back in the day, we called them transsexuals, right? We didn't call them, or transvestites, we called them, right? So now we call them just trans or transgender. And the ones that came out that have been around for years, this is not what they wanted. They didn't want this to turn into, well, I identify as a cat, and I identify as a black person, and I identify as, they didn't want all this shit. Like, it's just noise. It's like, we didn't come out here and fight to be recognized as a human being and not some freak and not mental health problems. We just, this is how we identify. This is what we chose. We told people our name was Brenda and not Brandon, or Brandon and not Brenda. And people were just like, some didn't like it and some were fucking like, whatever.
Yeah, I was off my back. Exactly.
Right. So I'm just sitting here and I'm like, everybody needs to just calm down. Did you see the reel where the cop pulled that guy over and he says, I identify as a cat? Did you see that one?
Hey, that's it.
Seth, you gotta see it. It's so funny. The cop was amazing. It was funny. I want to believe it happened in the States. Could be Canada, though. Not 100 on it.
Could have been most likely Florida. It's usually Florida.
The trooper pulls these guys over, and the guy, he says, can I have your license or registration? The guy pulls off his collar and gives it to him. And he's like, no, to operate a motor vehicle. Guy basically goes on to say that he's a cat. The person beside him goes on to say that he's the owner. And he's like, well, we can do this one of two ways. He's like, oh, no, it was, I think it's California. He's like, he goes, well, cats can't be driving in California. They can't obtain a driver's license. So we can just get, like animal control down here, and we can get you down to animal control. We can get you neutered or spayed and get you rabies shots. And the guy's like, and the guy's driving. He's like, what do we do to his like person? And the person's like, I don't know. And he's like, I don't have $70. Because he was like, it was going to take him $70 to get him out of like detainment at the animal shelter. Yeah. And the cop's like, we can bring down mental health because you shouldn't be allowing a person to be getting a rabies shot.
That's funny.
I was just like, what is happening? Like anyone who's allowing, if you're a child and your parents, like my kids played those games, like I'm a kitty cat, meow, meow, and then you're like, yeah, you're a kitty cat. I wasn't going and being like, okay, here's your litter box. This is where you pee from now on if you want to be a kitty. Make sure make sure you lick yourself to clean yourself and clean your hair. Like I don't encourage that. I'm like, hee, you're a kitty. Me too. And then I'd like scratch my kid and they'd be like, Mommy, why'd you scratch me? Because kitties scratch.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You be playful. I find it interesting. Anyways, but these are all topics that go on podcasts that make me laugh, right? Because I think I think it's fun to talk about these things in a different setting with different personalities.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right? It's not like, for me, this is what Trades is talking about. We've got all kinds of people that are coming in that are like, there's different groups and organizations that are trying to hold on to the rights of women. And now I'm going to say this. There were many female trailblazers well before me that endured a lot of shit. And and some of them still do. I know I've been through some shit. Like, I've been sitting in a room where I'm a consultant that is on the side of the owners. And I've had, contractors of, many, many different shapes and sizes of men and many different generations basically tell me the men are speaking, or you're speak when spoken to. Or I've been told things like that, and I just stare at them and I'm like, well,
you're like, excuse me.
I get really feisty. I'm one of those, right? So, it's like the FAFO era has commenced. So, but that's just how I look at it. I think that what happens is that in industry, if you're too, and I'm going to say this, it sounds like shit. If you're too soft or get offended easily in a top heavy,
you have to have a thick skin.
You have to have a thick skin in male dominated industry. And I'm going to tell you something which I find really funny.
Thick skin in woman dominated industries too, because women can be nasty.
Women are vicious. We're vicious. But I can get along. I find there's less, this is going to sound crazy, less drama in an all-female office than working on site with a bunch of guys.
Of course.
There's less drama. Now, men one-on-one as friends, less drama. Because men actually don't like drama. It's like they do, but they don't. It's like they're here for it, but they're not here to experience it.
We're done, and we move on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, what happened this week? Oh, what happened that week? And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, this is getting too close for comfort. I don't want any part of it. I don't want to know anything anymore.
You're like, all right, we're done. We're done. Peace. I'm going to drink my beer and get the hell out of here.
It's not wrong. So, but women are like, oh my God, what else did she do? And then what did she do? Well, what should we do for her? But women get really into it. Whereas I'm kind of someone who, I kind of shut things down. So there's aspects of drama where I'm like, man, whatever. It's like what happened to this person in their own life. And it's kind of like talking, it's not really bleeding into the company where it's like a dynamic where it's going to hurt people inside the company other than just the person that's talking about their own shit. So I don't care. But when it comes down to people that are going to I've had females, and this is where everyone gets, uppity. I've had females come to me and be like, I want to report one of the males I work with. Okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's report the male. So, and here's the thing. If you don't do a proper investigation on trade sites, it's bad. Yeah. It's a moot point. You can't just take her side and you can't just take his side. You actually have to investigate. So I went and did my courses for scene investigations and in the workplace. So I went and did an investigation, and I, quietly would just show up with stuff for the guys in different crews when she first came forward and they had no idea. And I just pull them side by side and I'd be like, hey, I hear so-and-so's coming to site. How's she doing? How are you guys doing? Does everybody get along? And let me tell you, the shit that would come out of their mouths, and they're not working alongside this female all the time. They're like, wow, she's wickedly inappropriate. She talks like a sailor. She's constantly making sexual comments, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like,
and it turns out the problem's not them. It's her. And
it's her.
Exactly.
And so then I went in and I was like, okay, well, what's this male doing? And she's like, oh, well, they're asking me to go out with them. And I said, are they doing it consistently? And they're saying, yeah. And I said, okay, have you put in a boundary? Have you said no? And I'm like, because there's no, and there's not this week. Not this week means there's still an opening. Ask me again later. Like there has to be a defined boundary. Like I'm not interested. Thank you, but no thank you. And then it came back, okay, well, now the boundary has been set. Meanwhile, I'll be honest with you. The guy that she was complaining about, very shy. Not saying he couldn't be a psycho killer. We don't know. You don't really know people,
Yeah.
But just very timid, easygoing, very respectful, like everything.
Not the guy you would pick out to be like
not the guy to pick out, which is usually the one you got to worry about, right? It's the one, the one you would least suspect.
Quiet ones. It's the quiet ones. Yeah.
It's the quiet ones. I'm going to tell my other half that it's the quiet ones, honey. But, but I honestly would never have, that he would be the last person, even out of some of the other guys that are quiet, he would be the last one because he's just so respectful. And I was just like, but I went through everything and I even went through their social media platforms to see if I could see anything. His was completely open and he did like, it was all like gamer. Oh,
really?
Yeah. And hers was like bar. And I'm like,
you're like,
I'm like, this is not winning your case.
Exactly.
This is not winning your case. Now, there was an instance where there was a blatant disrespect and I had to go in and be like, quit it or you're fired.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, we need to go through sensitivity training. No, fucking quit it or you're fired. It's that simple. Leave her alone. She's asked you to leave her alone.
That's the trades for you. And that's, I mean, I'm sure there's stories you can tell on podcasts all the time to wrap it back into the podcast topic.
Right.
You can talk about like the different, maybe people's names change and like to protect the innocent. So you could talk about these different scenarios and then people listen to this stuff and they're like, oh, I experienced that. Let me figure this out. This is good information.
Well, that's been one of the biggest questions that I pay attention to online for women is how do I deal with my male boss, right? How do I deal with my male boss? He's too handsy. He's aggressive. He thinks women are better in a kitchen. How do I deal with this mentality? And I'm like, I'm not going to lie. Like, Jesus, I'm going to be 44. I'm like, throat punch the motherfucker. Like, I don't care. Like,
yeah.
For me, I mean, like I've been in those scenarios where I've told the guy right to his face, I will throat punch you. Test me. And I'm like, I don't care. Yeah. I'm not going to jail.
Yeah.
I'm not going to jail. I might get charged, but I'm not going to jail. And they're like, why not? And I'm like, you threatened me. You are putting me in a position where you are threatening me. I am in a close quarter with you. I have two options if I can't get to the door. Fight my way out and put you down, or sit here and endure. Well, I'm sorry, sir, but today I'm not going to be a victim of anything further than what's happening right now. So you choose.
Speak up for yourself. Yeah.
Move to the side and let me walk out of here or get throat punched. And then they're like, well, now we know you're going to throat punch you. And then usually I'm like, I say throat punch because then you focus on your upper extremity. There are other aspects that can take a male down. I don't like those, but it's one of those things where I'm like, if a male is handsy, tell him, I don't like that.
Yeah. Women you gotta speak up for yourself. Absolutely.
Women are the same. Like I've walked in and I'm one of those people that gives everybody a pet name. Keep it light. Sunshine, honey, sweetie, sure. Like I'm one of those people that gives pet names. And there are some women and some men that will say, I don't like that. And then I'll just refer to them by their name. If I don't know, I don't know. If you tell me and I keep doing it.
You got it. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Then there's a problem. So I've had a guy say, I don't like when you use pet names. I'm married, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, no problem. I'm like, and then I'll just call him by his first name. And I'm just like, I don't care if you're married or not. I call everybody that. But you've put up a boundary and why that boundary exists. And I'm not going to argue with you about it. It's just going to be your name moving forward.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be a fucking debate.
No.
Now, if he said I prefer to be called they, them, it might be a little debate. Might be, where's the entourage? Am I missing something? What happened? I'm kidding. But, well, I am and I'm not. I told my kids, I'm like, he, she, that's it. Pick one, go with it. Mom loves you. So, and the kids are like, I know, Mom, I know. And I'm like, Mom works in trades. It's the one thing that we can't handle. Well, trades industry in itself cannot handle rapid change internally.
It's a slow moving industry. Yeah.
So it can't handle. So I guess my question to you is when there's accidents that happen, or if they're just fucking done being in the trades because of the drama or whatever, or just being overworked and underpaid or underappreciated, whatever. If they're moving into an idea to do podcasting, what's one of your biggest things that you would tell to help somebody to kind of get into podcasting?
Just get started. Just sit down with a microphone and start talking. You'd be surprised how after a few tries, it just starts working for you. You get into a flow. It's great.
I agree with you. Like I bought the microphone, and then I'll tell you what I did, because
you don't need all that stuff. You really don't. You should get a good microphone, but you can get a Yeti for crying out loud for like $50.
Yeah,
and just start.
That's what I started.
Use your phone. You can start your phone. You can use your phone for crying out loud.
You can,
and just start talking into that and recording, and then publish it. And the first one's gonna be a shit show. The first one's always gonna be a shit show. And even I've done 4 seasons of Digital Marketing Dive, my other podcast. And every first episode of every season is a shit show.
Mm-hmm.
But I still publish it. I'm like, this is welcome to season 1, season 4, episode 1. Let's get going. And it's always a little rough until you get into a flow.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way it is.
I agree. It's, I know for me, it was my team. So I had gone you'll know this because we were in Alignable together, but so Victor Felix was my marketing strategist. Yeah, and Victor was like, do a podcast. And I was like, I'm not there. I don't like looking at myself on camera. I don't like that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I like to
get started. You got to suck it up and get started. Yeah.
And that's what he kept saying. He's like, Lisa, just figure out a night. So then I had to, like you said, like throw around what I wanted to talk about on podcasts.
Mm-hmm. And that's where I come in. I come in and help you kind of organize your thoughts and kind of plan out a strategy so that the first episode might be a shit show, but the next one isn't. And the next one after that isn't. And you kind of can get into a flow, so it's going to be a 10-episode season. That's great. You plan for 10 episodes. Mm-hmm. It's not like you keep going and you at 12 episodes, you fizzle because you didn't plan for 12. Yeah. Plan for a season, that kind of thing. Or plan to keep going. Whatever you need to do, but set expectations for your audience. It's key.
I agree with you. And, and so I think that's amazing because I'm like a wing it person.
Yeah.
I
can tell.
Wing it. And a lot of people are like, well, did you, even with my company, LPM Enterprises, I winged it. I was just like,
you have to,
I'm tired of doing this. Just jump, just do it.
And you guys, sometimes you're just going to jump into the deep end, just get going, try it and learn as you go. That's the key.
Well, I grew up in that generation, sink or swim, right? Jump and you're either going to swim or you're going to sink. And either way, somebody's going to come and get you so you don't die. But,
yeah, exactly.
But then that maybe we don't start at, the deep end of the pool. Maybe we start in the middle, right? Exactly. Maybe there's more planning that needs to happen. Now, I've always been someone that for the most part, I've always believed in the blind faith. I'm always like, jump, you'll
jump
catch
and figure out, figure out your parachute on the way down.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's it. Right. And it's worked out.
Build the plane while you're flying it. That kind of thing. Yeah.
And it's worked for me. For the most part, it has worked for me. And so for me, it's just a sense of believing in yourself and knowing that you will put yourself in front of the right group that will, if you can't get it built fast enough, they're going to start throwing you pieces to build it.
Absolutely. That's good.
Right. Because I'm really big on support systems. And I always tell people have a support system. But I'm going to tell you, it's interesting because as you get older and time goes by, I'm noticing that friendships tend to be a little bit overrated.
They evolve and they change and all that stuff. Yeah. So
it's like you put a lot of I'm someone I do everything with 100%. If I'm your friend, I put in 100%. I'm there for you. I run for you. I do all this. I do all that. And then one day, all of a sudden, it just poof and it's gone. And you're like, was I too committed?
You're too committed. What the heck? Exactly.
But it's one of those things where it happened. In the last, I'm going to say in the last 5 years, I have had to weed through my friend garden.
You have to.
Some have just fallen off.
You gotta do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is what it is.
And so, I tell people that all the time. I'm like, there's going to be, things in your life where that happens, right? Divorce, birth, marriage.
Yeah.
Death is where your friend group gets weeded.
And that's that's a great topic for a podcast. Please feel free to steal that. Weeding your friendships.
Yeah.
There you go. So.
See, I love that. Now you're going to use that one, aren't you?
No, I got plenty of podcasts as it is. So maybe you can do another
for your
podcast.
teams. You got teams. Yeah, you can. Absolutely. Doesn't matter. To me, it's not even a competition. It's everybody has their own view on how it works.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it takes a village. If I give you 4 ideas to take back to 2 other podcasters that you're working with that you know would do really well with the topic, why would I be like, no, you can't do that?
Exactly.
I'd be like, do it. Then there's going to be their segment, and then I want to listen to it. So it's great. Okay. So I've gone on my little tangent for as long as I can. But you're a funny guy. And so, first of all, thank you very much for listening to my podcast. Because you did. I know you said
I love your podcast. It's great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So a lot of people are like, well, you're fun and upbeat and you're funny. And I'm like, well, I try to be.
Exactly.
I think
people like to hear people shoot the shit. And that's the key. So.
Right. And I think it's just fun to give certain things there needs to be a platform for, because there's going to be other people that identify with what's going on. You're not the only one. Right.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So that's why I always I want to bring on some of those. And then the resources, like yourself, you're a resource. You know, Dr. T, right? Thomas Hill. He's on the podcast talking about redox.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I've gone.
However, I could be assistance. Podcastmastery.coach is my blog.
Right. I think he should do a podcast. He's very funny. He cracks me up. I was teasing him before we got on the podcast, because I was telling my other half about Thomas, and I had said to him, Thomas is a very God-fearing man. I know the minute I get on the line with him, he's going to have something to say that has a religious undertone. And right away, right away he did, and I started laughing, and I said, I just want you to know, Thomas, that this is what I said to my significant other. And he started laughing, and then when we were on podcast, he's like, not that I want to, he knew he was going to use another reference, right, from the Bible. Yeah. And I kind of giggled, and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. I appreciate who he is and what his belief system is. I respect it. Yeah, it doesn't mean I'm
absolutely. You got to do it. Respect is the key. Respect is the key.
Well, now with a last name like Goldstein,
I'm an agnostic Jew. That's what I am. I'm an agnostic Jew. Yeah. The name like Goldstein, you can't get away from it. So there you go.
You're like, listen, I'm here.
I'm here. I am who I am, and you either like me or you don't. It's up to you.
Exactly. So how long are your sessions? How can people find you? Let's get into it.
Yeah, so you can find me over podcastmastery.coach. Sessions are around 45 to an hour. They're $250 per session. Usually I suggest around 4 sessions. So that way it's like 2 in the beginning, 2 towards the middle of the season, so you can kind of figure out where things are working, where things aren't. It's all through Zoom or Google Meet. All the sessions are recorded, transcribed, so you have copies of everything. All the resources you get, you get everything.
So do you go with a certain company, like podcast company? So I'm on Riverside, there's SteamYard.
Oh, no, I recommend, I'm agnostic that way too. Not just agnostic Jew. I'm agnostic when it comes to that. It depends on what they're comfortable with. So I'll tell them, I'm big on Squadcast because it comes with Descript, and I like Descript for editing and stuff like that. So it's kind of like save my money, put everything in one basket. But they're all the same. They all do similar things. So True. So I say, if you're going to edit it yourself, do Descript and get Squadcast. If you're going to do it, we have a producer. There's different things for everything, and then there's a Transistor for hosting that I like a lot and stuff like that.
That's fair. Well, it's funny because SteamYard has an application on it where you can filter your image.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Yeah,
right. And then, but Riverside doesn't, and I use Riverside, and I'm like, oh, I want to filter.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I want to try that now. Exactly. You kind of have to kind of pick your platform and stick with it so you understand it. Exactly.
Well, part of it is because us girls have gotten used to these new filters that are available, so we get a little bit more with the filter, right?
Exactly.
You gotta look at yourself the way you fucking are.
Exactly. You got backgrounds and all that stuff. It's like, come on, let's just keep things realistic here. Exactly.
Well, and you know what? And that's what it is. I have to be honest with you. Riverside has humbled me, right? To just be okay with everything.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. So some people are like, I want all of these different aspects, and that's great. That's them. But for me, I mean, my podcasting team had me go through Riverside, and I was like, and at first I was a
You're
little
like,
bit sad.
okay, fine.
Yeah, right? I was like, twist my arm. But then now that I'm here, I'm like, I'm not upset about it at all. Riverside is for me, it's great. I like it. It's easy to use. But yeah, I think that's the one thing that I would say that is the difference is I don't have any filter aspects on mine, which is not a bad thing.
Keeps you honest, keeps you bashful.
Right?
That's the key.
Well, it's like, people make jokes like when people are like rubbing their face or whatever and their fucking finger disappears, or all of a sudden their eyelashes
you can totally tell when something's up, and you're like, come on, like, let's be realistic.
Their lips move and the liner like moves with it, and you're like, what's happening?
You're like, something's going on there. Something's going on there, exactly.
Right? Exactly. Okay, well, I won't take up too much of your time. I know you're a super busy dude, so
I try, my friend, I try.
Well, I can tell that you're doing, I mean, like, I can always tell because I do the same thing where I'm engaged, but I have my eyes on something else because we have our eyes on the computer.
I'm trying. You call me. I'm just. I have my own podcast to get going because it's gonna go out today, and I'm like, ah.
Okay, that's why I'm like, you know what? I'm so grateful that you came on the show because
I'm so glad to be on. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been so much fun.
Absolutely. So, as everyone knows, we met through Alignable. You can find Seth Goldstein through Alignable, and you can also
podcastmastery.coach or Seth Goldstein. I think I'm the only one on Alignable named Seth Goldstein.
Podcastmastery.coach.
Yes.
.coach. Okay.
It's the new suffix. So I was kind of, I'll use that one. So, because I'm a coach.
Okay, well, that's where you got to go if you guys want to learn to be podcasters or have someone have a champion on your team to put you in the right direction and help.
Freaking
There you go. That's what it's all about, right? So
yeah,
I needed a Victor. Good. Victor was the one who pushed me into podcasts, and I eventually went and did podcasting. So I'm grateful for Victor Felix, who is my marketing specialist.
Victor Felix is a fantastic dude. Yeah,
he really is. And then and then I meet a whole bunch of you really great guys. I met Dr. T. I met a whole bunch of you. So I've got more people coming on the podcast that are in the States because Alignables is mostly States. But I want us, Canadians to realize, because some of them don't. Some of them we just see red. But there's people down there that are just like you and I that do not agree with what's happening and don't want anything to do with it. They just want to live their lives.
We're all human beings. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So.
If we cut, do we not all bleed?
Oh. This has been so much fun. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Okay, so as everyone knows, if you guys want to get a hold of me, you can reach me at lisa@lpmenterprises.net. You guys can send me your stories. I will read them on my podcast if you'd like, and we can go through that. Or you guys can come on the podcast at any time. You can also go through that link as well and book yourself a time.
So much fun.
Let's see. Or you can go straight to lpmenterprises.net, which has my podcasting I guess I'll talk subtitle, and then you can click on there and come on to the show. As always, thanks for everything, guys. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Seth Goldstein, for being on the show. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, no, and I'm very honored. Thank you. And
don't
do anything crazy. Okay, bye.